Series 2023. Welcome to the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities Self-Advocate Discussion Series, I should say. I'm Chris Hendricks. I'm the Policy Education Coordinator for the Council, and I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday and is looking forward to making the most of your 2023. On behalf of the Council, thank you for being here. This discussion series is a place where North Carolina self-advocates get to gather and engage with each other to talk about the things that affect our lives as people experiencing life with intellectual and developmental disabilities and other disabilities. And we want this time together used to get to know each other and to get to know the Council, where I and other individuals with IDD are leaders, colleagues, and we're valued for our input because we are who we are. People with disabilities should always be valued like that. And this discussion series will demonstrate why and how. And this month's topic addresses leadership positions specifically for people with developmental disabilities. And I want to start by saying a special welcome to today's invited speakers. First off, we have our Council Chair, Brian Dooley. Welcome. Next, we have Nessie Seiler, Council Vice Chair. And next we have Cheryl Powell, who has shared a variety of, held a variety of leadership positions with the Council and beyond, and she's going to share some of those with you today. But before we get to that, we're going to start with one of our favorite icebreaker moments, the joke of the day, or I should say jokes of the day. So what's one way we know the ocean is friendly? It waves. That one got me this morning. Two artists had an art contest. It ended in a draw. I'm starting to think that Philip Woodward either helped out with these or he's collecting them for his dad joke collection, because they are very dad joke level. Okay, with that said, now that we've had a laugh, let's talk about the topic for this month. So we're going to start the year off by diving even deeper into leadership. Last year, we learned from some graduates of local leadership programs in North Carolina. And today, you'll hear from current leaders in your community who have earned leadership positions. We will hear their story of what it took for them to be in the leadership position they're in today. We'll learn more about what leadership means and how to develop it. And we'll share some leadership opportunities in the community that need to be filled by game changers like you. So first question, why do we need people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in positions of leadership? Well, some of you might have your own answer to that, but I believe it's important because people with IDD need to know that it's possible. Leadership is not just about the position you hold, but the people you represent. As a person with an intellectual and developmental disability, you can pave the way for people with IDD who may not have seen themselves as leaders simply because they have a condition, and you can break down that barrier. So why is our leadership important to the community? Well, because simply by having an intellectual and developmental disability, we represent a welcoming and inclusive environment for our fellow men and women with or without disabilities. If you're not interested in a position of leadership, that's okay too. We still want to have you here. These roles aren't for everyone. However, leaders have been given the responsibility of their position because they have a unique ability to lift those who are willing to listen. Leaders can teach us valuable skills such as decision-making, accountability, and above all, what it means to serve. More than anything, leadership is about service first. So, how do you become a leader? Well, most leaders are either elected or selected to their positions. Elected leaders are chosen by a group of their peers after presenting their beliefs, experience, and passion for the position, usually in front of an audience. Typically, a vote will follow, where communities will decide which person presented the best case for their position. And they serve their position for a limited time, typically, before graciously stepping down and allowing for the next leader to take their place. Another key aspect of leadership is knowing when to pass the torch. If you are selected as a leader, whether in a company or in the public sector, it's usually done by other leaders within that organization. And they look over the knowledge and skills you've developed over the years and meet with you to learn more about your goals and desires for the position. After careful consideration, the right person for the position, based on the best judgment of previous leadership, is offered the opportunity to lead. So some examples of opportunities of disability leadership for people with IDD in North Carolina include a commissioner for the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, the council chair for the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, director of advocacy for the ARC of North Carolina, director of Exceptional Children Division for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, commissioner for the Office for Children with Special Health Care Needs, or the executive director or board chair of any nonprofit organization or public council. And this is just a limited list. There's tons of leadership positions out there for you. If you go to the North Carolina Boards and Commissions website and click on apply, there are so many applications and opportunities to apply for leadership positions depending on your interest. And if you wish to lead through using your artistic talent, you can even apply to be poet laureate for the state of North Carolina. And we'll put a link to the North Carolina Boards and Commissions website in the chat in case anyone's interested. As we spend time together today, I invite you to keep a few things in mind. Leadership and confidence go hand in hand. And this is not just an opportunity to hear about leaders in your world. It's also an opportunity to express yourself in a safe and comfortable environment. And with that said, we at the council encourage you all to please turn on your cameras if you're able. And even if you don't feel comfortable sharing anything and you just want to listen, as self-advocates, we are here to encourage each other and inspire each other. True leadership starts by being brave enough to risk being seen. In order to make change, we as self-advocates must step into the light and show the world that we value ourselves and we value each other. Now we're going to hear from a few prestigious position holders of the North Carolina IDD community. And first up is our very own Nessie Seiler.
Oh, okay.
If it's okay with you,
Thank
Nessie.
you. I think so. Okay, I'll do my
Can
best.
we show slide 4, please? Thank you. Thank you.
Nessie has been the North Carolina Council's vice chair 2 times, and the North Carolina Council's advocacy, she's been on the North Carolina Council's advocacy committee, and she has been vice chair of the North Carolina Empowerment Network. Nessie, tell us about your current leadership position and how you came upon it.
Okay, well, my current leadership position, as we sit here, actually I have 2. I believe that I am still the vice chair of the North Carolina Empowerment Network, and that is going to be up and running soon. I am also the vice chair for the council because the council had a need to fill this particular spot. I had filled it in the past. About, I think 4 years ago, they asked me to do a 2-year term, maybe 4 or 6 years ago. So I did. And the opportunity came up again. And so knowing that I could do it, having the confidence that I could do what they needed me to do because I had done it before, I said, okay, I'll put my name in the hat and see what comes of this. So on the appointed day, they said, you want to try this again? And I said, yes, I accept. So here we are.
Excellent. Excellent. So obviously you've had a desire to be a leader, and you have experience from time before. So tell us a little bit more about your story, where you came from, and how you were inspired to be a leader on the council.
Okay, well, I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back a little bit here because when I was growing up, my thought process was, being 4 and 6 and 8 years old, that this whole disability thing had to be my fault because I couldn't see anybody else that was responsible for it, even though it really didn't make sense that I felt responsible for having the disability. But I continued on thinking, okay, well, this must have very little to do with everybody else and a lot more to do with me because I'm the one with it. I'm the one with the disability, so it must be me. Meanwhile, I'm learning that, okay, other than my immediate family and the ones I love the most, the world was not set up for someone with my condition or with conditions in general. And I wondered, you know, why is this so difficult? It doesn't have to be this hard. So fast forward quite a few years, I'm newly married and I go to actually a sandwich shop with my husband for lunch. And this little girl who's about 4 notices our walkers and our crutches and she goes, Mama, she has one just like Grandpa has. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I had no problem with this little girl because she's making connections. She saw something she remembered, even if she had never met me before. She was precious. I just loved her. So after that, I started thinking, so why is it that I feel so different from most other people who are currently out and about? So I found myself as a student at Goddard College in Vermont some years later, where I undertook study in disability studies as an independent student. And I found out that, number one, it's not my fault. Number two, there's a whole bunch of stuff regarding disability services in this country and sometimes this state that needs a whole lot of work. And most of what I discovered was, oh my goodness, this could work so much better if this, that, and the other thing. So once I figured out that my disability was not my fault, I decided to turn my considerable energies toward the social change that this would need. In order to right this ship, we're going to need social change. And I, instead of being all worried about, oh my goodness, this is my fault, me, this is terrible, how awful, I could take that energy and go and do something about it to make it better for myself, yes, but for as many other people as I could, and keep the doors wide open and make sure they stay that way.
So now that you've made it into this leadership position, what advice do you have for any self-advocate who might want to be a leader? And what's your take on leadership positions in the community for self-advocates?
My advice to them, and to our group here, is this: take as many leadership positions as you possibly can. Find out as much as you can about everything that interests you. There may be some leadership positions where you're like, no, that's not for me. But if there are some that do interest you, then by all means, please let other people know that you're interested, and ask those already in the know what you need to do to get started in the process of becoming the leader that you want to be. And again, take as many positions as you can, but also let people know that you want those positions, and put in the work that it's going to take to get those positions. Now, that can be the hard part, I admit it. It's going to take time and energy and effort, but it's worth it.
So what kind of positions should people with intellectual and developmental disabilities fill?
All of them. All of them. Everything. There is no place where we are not. So why shouldn't those who have these conditions be everywhere? And the more that we are seen, and the more that we are known, and the more that people come to realize, hey, you know, he's awesome. He does this, and that. Or she's great at XYZ. The more people understand that, the better chance we have of becoming just another person and just another part of society, the same as everyone else, which in our case can be a good thing.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nessie. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Hey, Chris, this is Pam.
Yep.
I wonder if I can keep Nessie on the hot seat for a minute and ask her a question.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Nessie, I think when Chris invited you and you guys were preparing and talking and emailing back and forth, there might have been a name that you mentioned. Was there a name, Renata? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Can
Yes.
you share with the rest of us who don't know much about that?
Okay. Oh, Renata.
Briefly
Oh
tell
my
us how Renata relates to your story. Thanks.
Okay. So how she relates to my story is this: she and I had been friends actually for many years. As I was working with my local domestic violence center, she became a crisis line volunteer. I was the coordinator, so she and I talked quite a lot. So a few years into my stint there, she goes and begins working with people with disabilities in our local community, which was awesome. I went to college, came back, and was kind of at loose ends when she said, do you want to come to a council meeting with me? And I said, try and stop me. So she took me down to Raleigh, introduced me to everybody, let me stay in her room during a council meeting so that I could see my first one and get a good idea of what it was about. And I will tell you, it took everything I had not to completely fly out of my seat at the end of every 5 minutes, because I had finally found my people. I didn't have to explain anything. I didn't have to make it easy. I didn't have to make it simple. I just had to be who I already was. And that was amazing. That was amazing. And I will forever love her for that.
I hope you all heard or read that. I finally found my people. I want to put that in quotes somewhere. Nessie, we're so thankful for your leadership. You have this brilliant ability to be both as direct as necessary and yet so soothing at the same time. And we're so thankful for you. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming and sharing today.
You're certainly welcome anytime. Just let me know.
Next on the hot seat, we have our very own Cheryl Powell. She is the North Carolina Council Vice Chair. She is the chair for the North Carolina Council Advocacy Committee. She has been the North Carolina Financial Asset Development Committee Chair and lead chair for the North Carolina Empowerment Network. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you. And just a quick correction, Nessie is now the vice chair. I have served twice as vice chair. And I couldn't think of a better person to take my spot. So currently, let's see. So as you said, I've served as vice chair. I've served there twice. I've been the chair of the Advocacy Development Committee, chair of Financial Asset Committee, and chair of the North Carolina Empowerment Network. So currently, I'm a member of the council. I was appointed by the governor in 2015 and have since served twice again as vice chair, as well as twice as a base committee chair, and that would be like your financial asset development and your advocacy development. So if you were to ask, what's your story? How'd you get here? I was born with cerebral palsy, or CP. I had a very encouraging and supportive family that I can't stress how important that was in my life. My parents expected me to go to school, work, and have a family of my own, and there was no question about it. I was not allowed to use my disability as an excuse to not work hard. I graduated from high school, and then I graduated from college. Furthermore, I earned my degree in social work from UNCW. I went on to work as a direct support professional for Easter Seals UCP for 7 years. At that point, I got legally married to my current husband of 10 years, Billy Powell. Upon getting married, I say legally, it's important to say that because a legal marriage carries with it certain benefits or lack thereof. Upon our getting married, I lost my Medicaid benefits because our income together was $400 past the income limit. Following that, I was laid off from my job at Easter Seals, so I found myself with pretty much nothing to do. I'm not one to sit around, and so I started volunteering as a self-advocate. I applied to the council not long after that, and to my surprise, even to this day, I was appointed by the governor in 2015. I began speaking up and speaking out from the first meeting for people with disabilities on a state and national level, and was seen as a leader. I'm still humbled by that fact. I truly am. If you're to ask me what, and Chris, I don't mean to overspeak you, so if you need to chime in, please do. So what advice would I give to self-advocates who want to further develop their leadership skills? I'm going to say, don't be afraid to speak up about what you feel is right. Don't ever underestimate yourself. Look for leadership trainings and take them if you can. Most of all, simply show up to meetings involving other people with disabilities and listen and speak when it's appropriate. And so, what leadership opportunities in the community need to be filled by self-advocates? As my friend and colleague said, quite frankly, all of them. When I say that, I mean that there is no table, in my opinion, that a self-advocate does not belong at. People without disabilities are at all tables, so you tell me why a self-advocate shouldn't be. We have to work together, and we have to speak up. We've been silent as self-advocates for far too long, in my opinion. And I just want to thank the council, everyone here, for this opportunity. And there are great things ahead. There truly are.
Well, Cheryl, you certainly defined the lifting everyone else up aspect of leadership. And we simply cannot imagine your voice not being a part of this community. And we are so thankful for you for so many reasons. And yes, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
As Sarah Potter shared in the chat, don't be shy. Cheryl's anything but shy. I think that's fair to say. Next, I have the honor of welcoming the chair of the North Carolina Council, Mr. Brian Dooley. He's also the chair of, oh, pardon me, Brian, I already interrupted you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brian Dooley and I'm the chairman of the Council on Developmental Disabilities. As you can tell, I have a speech disability, so my dear people have me read my
Hello, I'm the DSP for Mr. Brian Dooley today, and I'll be reading his words that he's already written down. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brian Dooley, and I am currently serving as the chairman of the North Carolina Council on the Developmental Disabilities. I was appointed to the position in December of the year before last by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. In the role, I formally lead the council, including chairing and quarterly meetings, along with the executive committee of the council. I'll work with Tally Wells closely and supervise him. I have made us more active in public policy than we have been before. I have also been asked to talk about my previous position. It was similar to the current one. I was the chair of the board of directors for Disability Rights North Carolina. The most important thing I did was lead the search for the current CEO, Virginia. I was on the board for most of this Samantha R case. I have been extremely fortunate to have many leadership opportunities in the disability rights throughout my life. My story starts with my mom. She was the most supportive person I could ask for regarding my leadership. She made sure I was at every meeting and grasped the opportunity I was given, and I was willing to participate actively. In addition to my mom, I have many supportive people who helped me get into these leadership positions. My leadership began in high school, especially when I was in the first youth leadership forum with people like Matt Potter. I have been friends with that family ever since, and they keep an eye on me now that my mom is, unfortunately, unable to. I also want to mention my friend Stacy Milborn Park. We were remarkably close before she went to California. She was really one of the most critical people I have known because she welcomed me into the movement, even though I was incredibly quiet then. Now I have a job in the disability rights field. I work at Solutions for Independence in Winston-Salem. My job is to help people live as independently as they can. My mom was a key role model for me as an advocate, only she didn't get paid for it as I do. But it's kind of like advocacy in a family business. Advocacy is a family business.
Mhm.
Finally recognized by the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities with the Jack B. Hefner Memorial Award in 2021. It's a common expression, but common expressions are often true. A big part of leadership is showing up. I would say not to be afraid as a person with disabilities to share your life and your voice because you can all add to disability rights. With all due respect to many of the professionals in our field, they do not all have the life experience on a personal level that people with disabilities and their families live with. No matter how much more money they often make than people with disabilities in their families, they do not share the experience. So do not be intimidated by that. You still have a lot to add. I'm not an expert on this because as far as I know, there's not one big list of leadership opportunities for people with disabilities. But I will say every organization that serves people with disabilities should have someone with disabilities involved with them so that there can be somebody on boards volunteering as I did. If you're lucky, it will lead you on your own career path. That's been my experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. What I heard was if a position exists where persons with that serves persons with any disability, somebody with a disability ought to be at that table making leadership decisions.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
one of many things that I heard. And that rings true for me, and I think for all of us as a council. So thank you, Brian, for your current leadership. Thank you for where you've been, where you're coming from, and where you are. Please don't go nowhere.
Thank you.
Chris, may I say something?
Yeah.
Cheryl, how dare I say no? Go right ahead.
You've been overruled. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that not only at tables where disability issues are being talked about, but tables in general. As I said, as I was telling my story, people without disabilities are at all tables. So why wouldn't we be at all tables? We have every right to be there just like anyone else. And that's how you meet people. That's how you learn what's happening around you. And that's how you build relationships that can really make a difference. So I just wanted to stress that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, I'll tell you what, somehow I made it last on the list here to share my own leadership experience. Not sure if I'm needed because we had three experts so eloquently share, but I too am very happy to be here with you today. I am currently, as I mentioned, on staff with the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities. Back in 2020, I was brought on as a part-time contractor, policy education coordinator. And in June of 2022, I became a full-time policy education coordinator for the council. And I should also mention that this position is brand new for myself and for the council. And I feel very, very at home. So for other staff members on this call, very much appreciate this opportunity. A little bit about my story. I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 4, and this is around the time that I started singing and performing. There's a saying when it comes to parents and children that I recently learned as a dad. They say the thing that you possess as a child that drives your parents the most crazy is going to be the skill that helps aid you the most as an adult. And I guess for me, I never learned how to stop talking. So growing up, I put most of my energy into my education and my communication. I graduated high school and went to Elon University, where I got a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Physiology with an emphasis on physical therapy. But during college, I used college as if I'm being honest, more of a social experiment than an educational experiment. And I just offered myself up to as many leadership positions as I could. And some of the ones that I stuck to include the vice president of the Resident Student Association, the head of IT programming for Habitat for Humanity, and lead program chair for student affairs, to name a few. And college is where I learned to socialize and speak my mind. And this helped me find my calling as a speaker. And then I began to use my experience as a performer and a self-advocate and a recording artist to travel around the country with the goal of inspiring students and business people, businesses alike, around self-advocacy and inclusion and the value of being a person with a disability in both the private and public sector. Since I had knowledge and personal experience around health, and I love to talk, I eventually got hired as a benefits counselor for life and health insurance. And right before the world shut down in 2020, our executive director for the council, Tally Wells, he saw me speak and perform at an Employment First event put on by Disability In. Tally and I met for coffee shortly after that, and the rest is history. I've been welcomed with open arms, really. As far as my advice to self-advocates who want to further develop their leadership, maybe this has been said, but it might be worth repeating. Learn all you can from those around you that inspire you and energize you. And if you're given an opportunity, don't wait to be inspired by it. Research those who have come before you and done great things. Use technology to your advantage to the best of your ability, if able. This is the age of the internet, from YouTube to Google. Leadership learning is everywhere. And last but not least, nothing inspires us about what should and should not be done, like history. Our past can be a great guide for our future. When it comes to policy, start with history and work your way up from there. What leadership opportunities in the community need to be filled by self-advocates? Cheryl and Brian and Nessie all put it so well. There's only 3 things you really need to fill a position: skills, knowledge, and passion. And even these days, a lot of times, if you've got enough passion, leaders prior leaders are willing to train you around the skills and the knowledge. And you wouldn't let a label define you as a person, so don't let a label define your position. Doesn't matter whether the position is IDD, has IDD in the title or not. As a person with lived experience, as Brian said, you bring value in both the public and private sectors. Doesn't matter where you are. And last but not least, you must try. We cannot move forward unless we try. Or as Philip Woodward would say, do or do not, there is no try. You can't become a leader without being brave enough to step into the position. In the end, whether you're chosen or not for the position that you apply for, you will learn from that experience and you will grow. The only way you don't move forward is by choosing to stay where you are. And you all just shine too brightly to do that. And so I encourage you to move forward in whatever way you feel comfortable. You were all brave enough to join us today. That in and of itself is a step forward. Well, now it's time for attendees to share. So first of all, does anyone have any questions for our guest speakers? You feel free to raise your hand or put your question in the chat. And we'll give a chance for our attendees to respond. Any
I have
questions
a
at all?
question in the chat. This is Pam. Sarah Potter wants to know which one of you will be the first person from this group to run for public office.
Bill,
That's a good question.
Is a good question.
I
don't
know. Go
see
ahead.
myself-
See myself running.
I like being able to work with politicians, but I'm not one myself.
I have a friend, a very dear friend, who says, you know, you need to get involved and run for office or this office or that office. And I'm like, I can't do it, buddy. I just can't do it.
But
I
Cheryl,
just-
But Cheryl, but Brian, but Chris, somebody has to tell these people what they need to know.
Yeah.
I see.
And the only way that they're going to listen, I feel, is if we say, okay, let's see who can win this office. Maybe we do need to run for office. By the
Yeah,
way,
you know-
Sarah, what does Matt say?
Oh, good question.
Matt says whenever somebody asks him if he would run for office, he'll say, I never knew you disliked me so much.
Oh no. Ah.
But we need a fox in the hen house. That's what I think. We need to shake some things up.
Somebody's got to say something. Somebody's got to tell them what they need to know.
You could do it. Yes.
So
From the inside out.
Yeah.
so maybe we all should think about that.
Well, I nominate all of you. For what
It
it's
could
worth.
be, it could be little things. It doesn't have to be like a governor to be, you know, a public office. It could be a school board, you know, things like that. So yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
keeping things in perspective and just helping where you can. Absolutely.
Cheryl, I
God
think
have
you're
the
saying,
ability to illuminate.
yeah.
I'll just
Oh,
I'll just very quickly share. Don't forget that quote from Gladiator, the movie Gladiator, when Maximus says, "I don't want anything to do with leadership," and Maximus says, "That's exactly why you're perfect for the position." So
Yeah.
just throwing that out there. Okay, so I want to make sure we have enough time for attendee sharing. So
Chris, this is Pam real quickly. I wanted to point out another comment in the chat that relates, Cheryl, to what you were saying. Yvonne, I don't know if you want to come off of mute and make the comment yourself, but Yvonne also made the point, like Cheryl, that everyone can make progress, that Yvonne was a person who didn't use words to communicate. And I'm not able to see the chat at the same time that I'm sharing at the moment, Yvonne. So forgive me for paraphrasing. Oh, there you are. You go ahead and make your
Okay.
comment. I'll be quiet here.
No, I
Thanks.
mean, that's just what I wrote. I don't know, like sometimes I have a hard time talking like y'all do, like a long story without being prompted. But yeah, I was nonverbal and I didn't walk until almost 4 years old. As my parents, they recognized something was not right. You know what I mean? Not right, meaning, not, I wasn't progressing like other kids. So they found a book called Sunrise, and y'all might want to look it up. It's called Sunrise, spelled SONRISE. And then they got me to touch things, and they verbalized to me and sing and stuff and different things to wake up the nervous system and the brain and stuff. And then I went on to school, but I'm also legally blind, so I was in special classes for that. But then I was mainstream in 4th grade up, but I had both special classes and mainstream since 4th grade up to 12th grade. And I graduated and I took some psychology in college, but I didn't finish college. But I still study a lot, like I listen to NPR all day, and I read things online when I want to look things up and stuff like that. So anybody could progress from one point to another, you know. That's what I wanted to say.
thank you for sharing, Yvonne. I'm gonna go to you for a resource.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, I have a lot of contacts that, like, my phone is like a phone book. My phone contact list is like a phone book, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, Yvonne, you kind of started us off. I want to hear what our attendees think. Like we like to say, nothing about us without us. This is all about you guys. I want to hear, or we want to hear, what leadership positions you've held in the past.
And one more thing, music is good therapy. Music has kept me going and it keeps my memory alive. So if it wasn't for music, I wouldn't remember a lot of things and retrieve a lot of things over the years. So music is very good. It's very therapeutic and definitely makes me live. I love music, especially Ari.
100% from one fellow music lover to another. I couldn't live without music. So I hear you,
Right,
Yvonne, absolutely.
right, cool.
Well, for all of our participants today, I would love to know, we would love to know what leadership positions you have held in the past. We would love to know if there's any leadership positions you would like to have that you know about and why. Are there any things about leadership or leadership positions that our speakers today, you think our speakers today or our audience ought to know about? And last but not least, what are the best and worst parts about holding a leadership position in the community? Because with great power comes great responsibility. And we would love to hear your take on that.
Are you asking the audience or are you asking just everybody?
I'm asking the audience, but of course, anyone who has thoughts on it feel free to raise your hand or jump in. And lastly, I'll just use this as an opportunity to remind everyone, if you're able to come off camera and come off mute so that we can connect with one another and see your lovely faces, I would encourage you to do so.
If no one else has a thought, I have a thought.
I have a thought.
Go right ahead.
It is a huge sacrifice.
It is a huge sacrifice.
That's one thing about it.
That's one thing about it.
And it's a lot of work for not a lot of pay.
And it's a lot of work with not a lot of pay.
This is basically a second full-time job.
This is basically
A second full-time job.
A second full-time job, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no one gets paid for it. But it's very important.
and no one gets paid for it, but it's very important.
So that's one thing.
So that's one.
And it also takes a lot of time.
It also takes a lot of time.
There are other things I can be doing.
There's other things I can be doing.
But this is important.
But this is important.
So I take some time out of my day
So I take some time when I need to
do this stuff.
To do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Brian, thank you. Thank you. Number one, sacrifice, service first. Absolutely.
I'll just go ahead and speak up because, well,
Sure.
that's me. I echo Brian's sentiments. It takes a lot out of you, and when you care, like Brian does, and Nessie does, and I do, and when you truly, and Chris, you do as well, of course. When you truly care, it's not about the money; it's about the people. And for me, for a long time, it was about nothing more than giving my everything. And I did it. And I'm almost done with my term on the council, and I'm going to give to the last day. But now it's time. I think what I want to get across is at a certain point, you've got to stand up for yourself too. And at a certain point, you have to say, I've given you my all. And now it's time for you to help me and help me get into positions where I can be even more effective. And so when you ask about what leadership position would you like to have, quite frankly, I'd like to have a paid leadership position. Because as Matt Potter, who is a colleague and friend, will say, why shouldn't I be paid for what I do? And, he had to drill that in my head, and he finally did it. But a lot of things have happened that brought me to that point. I'm not saying go look for a job tomorrow that you have to be paid to be a leader. I'm just saying at some point, you have to look after yourself too. And you're going to recognize that if you give and you give, you will wake up and say, wait a minute, it's time now. And so as I'm moving towards the future, I'm looking for more value for myself, valuing myself for me, to value my own expertise and my own lived experience, and to not kind of take it for granted anymore, that the effort I give should be freely given. I'm probably still gonna do it, but because it's just my heart. But I'm gonna push harder to get us recognized as paid staff, as you are, Chris, and you deserve your position, and you're good at your position, and I take nothing from you.
Preach. That's all I don't have another word for that, Cheryl. And I want to just also say, first of all, thank you for your passionate share. And I also want to say thank you to Sean. I saw you came on video for a second. Are you still on video? I can't get it. Yes. Sean, thank you for stepping into the light, as we say. Do you have any specific thoughts around the stuff we talked about today, or things that you'd like to share about leadership?
So sorry to interrupt. Sean, are you still muted? I'm not hearing a voice. Am I the only one?
I see your lovely face. I'm unable to hear as well. Ron seems to be having some challenges with the mic in the chat. Sean, if we're able to get the mic issue fixed, of course, we'd love to hear, but if you'd like to share your thoughts in the chat, you're also welcome to do that.
This is Philip Woodward here. I would like to speak for a minute while Sean fixes his microphone. I've enjoyed hearing all of our leaders today talk about leadership positions they've been in and share their thoughts. And I wanted to share a little bit of my experience. I grew up as a hard of hearing person, and I've worn hearing aids since age 4. And when I went to college at William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, I had the opportunity to be in some leadership positions as a student there. Some of them were related to my hearing loss. For example, some friends and I founded a sign language club, and some other students told me they wanted to take American Sign Language for academic credit. So I seized the opportunity to participate the English and Interdisciplinary Studies departments at William and Mary to offer American Sign Language for academic credit, and they were able to do that. But I also held some leadership positions that were completely unrelated to my hearing loss at all. For example, the president of the college selected me to be a president's aide for 2 years, while I would attend meetings with the president and assist the president with answering questions and understanding issues that students are facing. And I was a writer for the school newspaper Since I love sports, I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I covered women's gymnastics and women's golf, as well as having my own NFL football preview column every fall. And I captained a intramural football, flag football, and basketball teams. So in college, I found the opportunity to do a lot of things, both related to the disability that I have and unrelated to the disability that I have, while I was in a position to be a leader. And I relished that opportunity, and it carried forward into my professional life today. Thank you.
Philip, this is Chris. Thank you very much for offering up some examples of leadership positions that don't have IDD in the title, but that you've obviously filled brilliantly. I also want to take a moment to share in the chat, if I may. Sean has shared, I'm the director of residential services at Murdoch Development Center, and I'm happy to be here and proud and inspired by everyone on the panel. Sean, I hope it's okay that I read that out for you. I know we're having challenges with the mic. I've certainly been inspired by each and every one of the speakers here today. I'll make one last ask. Do any of other participants want to share their thoughts on leadership before we move on and I share some leadership opportunities? I'll read the questions one last time. Tell us about leadership positions you've been in. What leadership positions would you like to have? What disability issues would you like our guest speakers to know about? And what are the best and worst things about leadership positions? I will very, very quickly share in my own experience. I would say both the best and worst thing about leadership is you give credit and you take blame. If something goes right, all the credit goes to the people that you work with. And if something goes wrong, it's all on you. That's my quick little take. And with that, just a quick readout on some opportunities that we have, leadership opportunities that we have in our community. One is the Youth Lead North Carolina program. Another opportunity is the LEND program at UNC CIDD. And lastly, we have the Ability Leadership Program of North Carolina. And once again, these are just some examples. As everyone on this call, all the speakers have shared, whether it has to do with intellectual and developmental disabilities or not, if you are passionate and you feel that you have the skills and the drive to fill a position, jump on in. Each and every one of you are inspiring in your own way, and your passions are your passions for a reason. I'm glancing over at the chat, the Helen Keller quote, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That's so true. And yes, we're gonna be sharing the resources and the opportunities with you shortly after this session. And we really appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you so very much to our ASL interpreters today. Thank you so much to our Spanish interpreters for being here. Thank you so much to our speakers, our council chair, and Cheryl and Nessie. And before I forget, let me read some more leadership positions for you. We have shared with you the link on the North Carolina Boards and Commissions website. Again, the chair and vice chair, the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, director of advocacy for the ARC of North Carolina, Director of Exceptional Children's Division for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. That one's a mouthful. And the Executive Director or Board Chair of any nonprofit organization or governor-appointed advisory council. And don't forget about federal positions in Washington, D.C. Commissioner of the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, and the Commissioner for the Office for Children with Special Health Care Needs. And in the chat, we have please add to the list the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, local and state CFACs, and Meet the Need, North Carolina. Whew. That was a lot, but I promise we'll put it together in written form for you in post if you missed any of this. On behalf of the North Carolina Council, thank you all again for being here. And be sure to register for our upcoming self-advocate discussion series in February. Just be on the lookout for that. I'm running out of words here. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.